Okay, so I started recording this video and I just kind of did like a test, and I was looking at the video and I saw myself and I thought, oh, I look fat with this sweater. Maybe I should change it. And then it was like, why do I care? Okay, hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today I am going to be talking about reading levels and how you can level up. Okay, so I actually was going to label this as easy reading and difficult or hard reading, but I don't think it is that easy. I decided to label the levels like simple reading and complex reading, and I want to put the emphasis not so much on the contents of the book, which are very important, but also in the way the reader approaches the book. Okay, so first, what is a simple read? What do I consider a simple read from my experience and from what I've done some research on? So a simple read, it's the kind of book or it's the kind of article that doesn't really require you to know much about the context or about the author or when the book was written or what is the book, in what context it is set. Or like a simple read will be something where you don't really need to make an effort in order to understand what the writer is trying to convey. And simple reads, I think they are mostly targeted for teens, and also like maybe not only for teens, because if you think of like 50 Shades of Grey, that's a pretty simple read. I haven't read it, but like from what I've seen, like from little glimpses of the book and like from the movies and from what I've heard from my friends and from people who have read it, it's not like a very complex universe. Like if you compare it to Games of Thrones, like it's different. So why did I say it was targeted for teens? Not that teenagers can read complex things, not like we are only limited to read like John Green. I say it's targeted for teens because that's like the ideal public. When you're a teen, you're busy playing, you're busy hanging with your friends, you're busy with school, doing homework. But maybe sometimes you will feel like reading a book. And those books like, The Fault in Our Stars, Hush Hush, Paper Towns, Twilight, those are easy or those are simple reads that doesn't require you to know much before you read them. Like I'm not just saying like I've read all of these books, but I was like 14. So I really enjoy them at that age, but it wouldn't be the same to read them right now because it's not enough for me. Now, what do I consider a complex read? I will say that a complex reading, it's the kind of book I'm talking about books mainly here that require you to know about the author, to know about the context the author was raised or where he lived in. And it's the kind of book that requires making an effort in order to not only understand, because you can read the book and understand and enjoy the story, but you won't be able to, to understand, really what the author wanted to convey through his words. Like, why did he say this? In what context was he that made him think this way? So when we are making a complex read, making an effort in order to understand, it really gives you a major experience that compared to if you only read the book and didn't do like any research on it. Like that's why I'm saying it's a matter of choice. Because you can read it and like, you enjoy the story, but I remember once I read this book called I think it's Time Must Stop by Aldous Huxley, and I didn't understand shit. I didn't understand anything. Like my friends were kind enough like to give it to me, and I was like very grateful, of course, and I enjoyed this story. Like I could tell this was a very interesting and deep story, but I couldn't understand it. Like there were so many things that were relative to the context that the book was setting, like the economic and the political and the social context. And also this author, it's someone that in this book in particular, he decided to put a lot of political meaning. At that time I was in high school and like I didn't really give a lot of attention to those kind of details, but I'm sure that right now that I have more context about the political situation through different times, I'm sure that I could read that book and understand not only the author intentions, but the intentions of the characters inside the book, which is like, if you don't understand why the protagonist is doing what they're doing, then it's like, what are you doing? You're not like understanding the book. And you might be, oh, I just want to imagine it. Yeah, you can do that. But I just think that if someone wants to convey an idea, it's also not a responsibility, but something nice to do. Like, try to understand what that person was really saying. Now, how do you level up? And I haven't been talking a lot about levels because I don't think it's something like, oh, you're in first grade, then you read this book. You're in second grade, then this book. You're in university, then you should read this book. Because if you're in if you're in like in college and you've never read a book in your life, like, of course you're not going to start with a first grade book. But I think that reading books, it develops certain qualities that help you understand more complex books in the future. Qualities like critical thinking, like memory, asking questions about the plot, like, seeing those plot holes or those plot twists. It's not always necessary to read a lot of books in order to understand the books or to enjoy a complex read, but reading a good bunch of books can really help you develop those skills that will make you level up in reading. I mean, if we can even talk about leveling up. And those are skills like, critical thinking, like memory, like asking questions. Like, think about it. It's not the same to read a book where there are like 10 characters to read a book where there's more than 1,000 characters. Like, let's say you're reading a saga, and I looked this up, and Game of Thrones book saga, it has like 2,000 characters, and you gotta remember, the main characters' names and their relationships with the other characters. Why did this person do this, and why does this person hate this other person, and why is this relationship so complicated? Like, what are the links that link them? So you have to develop that ability to memorize that and to understand and to have that critical thinking. Now, for real, how the heck do we level up? And as I said, some of these are maybe not for leveling up exactly, but maybe to maximize your experience when reading a book. Okay, so first thing we should have into account is context. General culture, general knowledge about where the book is set on. You can look up like what kind of clothing was popular, what was the social, political, or economic situation at the moment. Like, and you don't even have to look them up. Like, you don't have to make a whole research just to read a book. Like, most of these things, it's stuff that you already know, that you've learned. I mean, if you're lucky enough to have gone to high school and to get an education, if you're lucky enough, then those are things that you may already know. And if you don't, these are things that will easily come up online. You just have to look them up. And as I say, you don't need to do this for every book. Like, you're not writing a thesis about the book. Sometimes it's enough just to take a step back, like, oh, this book says it was set during the Great Depression, during the Spanish flu, during the Edo dynasty, I don't know, in the future, like, I don't know. And you just have to take a step back and ask yourself, what does that look like? Books are like a conversation, at least from this communication theory. Books are a conversation between the author and the reader. It's our job as readers to fill the little gaps, not, bad gaps, but the little gaps that are left for our imagination. Number two, it's about the author. Like I say, who wrote it? When and where were they born? In what context they were raised? Like, should I stop reading a book just because I disagree with the opinion of the author? Like, this happens a lot to me. I'm like reading a book, and let's say it's an old book. And, this person maybe grew in a context where, let's say, for example, women had this kind of position. So in the book, there are references like, oh, and because she was a woman, or of course she was a woman, so she had to do this. And I instantly am like, okay, wait, what are you saying? You're saying the woman, but this person who wrote the book, it's someone that was conditioned by their context. So when we read a book, even if we disagree with what they're saying, before judging the author and just slapping the book close and just closing the book, we have to like have into account what was their context. And I understand this might be up to debate because people are like, oh, this person did such a great job, but they were like a piece of shit. So should I still read this book, or should I still listen to this song if this person like was such a shitty human being? And honestly, I don't have the answer for that. People, they say that sometimes you just gotta sometimes you just gotta sometimes you just gotta separate the artist from the art. And I mean, I honestly, I don't know about that, but that's up to each person. That's very personal. And of course, if you don't want to read a book because this person was like a slavist, like go ahead and don't read it. Like, it's okay. And my last point has to be with something more technical. And this is not about the author or the context. This is rather about the technical difficulty of the book. There are books, because of their nature, they have very complex vocabulary, or they reference maybe a lot of philosophy or spiritual theories, and these are like complex books on themselves, independently of the author background or the context when it was reading. And this is something that like I think you do reach by reading. I think this is something you do work on by studying. Because let's say when when an author references I don't know, the communist movement in during the Cold War, I mean, you don't know. You're like 14 and like you don't have any idea what the communist movement was, or if they're talking about a religion you never heard of. Let's say they're talking about, I don't know, you've never heard about Buddhism, and the whole book it talks about it, and it's in that context. I've said the context so many times during this video. I'm sorry, I don't know. Ambience. Let me know if you know other word because I don't. So yeah, it is in that context. So these are more technical things that you are gonna have to learn with time. Of course, you can read a book and like, oh, I don't know what this is, and just look it up. That takes time. And I think that stopping, for me, it's very uncomfortable when I'm reading a book and I have to look up every single word, because the vocabulary that the author is using, it's just so complex that it is out of my grasp. So those were the points that I wanted to talk about. What is a simple read and what is a more complex read, and I really wanted to make an emphasis that sometimes it really depends on the reader disposition. Like, as I say, you can read a book and you can like understand all the words, but maybe you won't understand what's behind those words. And in some authors' work, that really matters, and it's worth to know. Okay, so anyways, thanks for watching up till here. I'll be uploading a video every Saturday, and I'm thinking about maybe every Saturday and Wednesday or Thursday. I kind of like to, move it up a little. And yeah, if you like it, you can like, share with your friends and comment it. I will really appreciate that. And yeah, see you next time. Bye! Okay, so I am going to be editing this right after recording it, and I just wanted to apologize for the really bad lighting. I know one side of my face is like super dark and the other one is like very, there's a lot of light, because there's a light over there and it's so dark outside, and I I don't have a standing light. I couldn't fix it. So I'm sorry about that. I will work on those things in my next video. I hope you enjoy it, and yeah, that's all. Bye. And also, don't miss my next video about I'm going to be making a very interesting video about the terms and conditions of Google, and I'm going to try to make it in a very like dynamic way.